because everybody just kind of assumes that what trust means to me is what it means to you. And I am here to tell you that that is not the case. Make sure you're speaking the same language when you meet somebody and you're talking about trust back and forth. Not everybody views it the same way. So, a couple of weeks ago, I put out a video about how men and women will use the same language and how those words can mean something completely different to the man and the woman. And that many times you might be in agreement. You might actually be saying the same thing, but just using different words. And since those different words mean different things to each person, you find yourself in an argument, a disagreement, and you get far enough down the rabbit hole and you're like, wait a minute, this is starting to sound like we're both saying the same thing. Now, the word that I want to get into today is trust. And this is probably the biggest word in terms of relationships. Right now, there's all sorts of trust, right? If you're in the military and you go to war, you trust somebody, I got your six, I got your back, right? You know that when you take off that way and they say they got eyes behind you, you trust them, right? To make sure nothing's going to happen. There's trust on the sports field, or quarterback trusts that the wide receiver is going to go where he's supposed to go and he's going to throw the ball. Okay. But trust in a relationship, uh, it is so difficult to pin down what trust will mean to someone. But it's important in the beginning of a relationship to define these words, to talk about what does trust mean to you? What do you expect from me in terms of holding your boundaries, holding my boundaries? What does trust mean to you? Now, I think that generally speaking, this is not a gendered topic. It can happen either way, man or women. I think generally speaking that most people would agree with the following statement. Trust in a relationship means I am agreeing to operate within the boundaries that you've presented to me, that what you're comfortable with. And I am agreeing that I will not purposefully go out and attempt to break those boundaries, right? So, as an example, if my girlfriend, if she is if her boundary is she doesn't want me to have meals alone with women, I can talk to women, I can do, have normal interactions, but her boundary is just don't have dinner alone with another woman. um I'm agreeing to, okay, you can trust that I am not going to do this thing, right? Now, some people might say, well, there's a line between doing something on purpose and doing something on accident, and that's something I want to get into. But generally speaking, I think that we can all agree that when I say you can trust me, what I'm saying is I got your back, I got your six. I am going to do everything in my power to make sure that nothing that I do hurts you, goes over the boundaries that you've illustrated to me. Okay, so there's that. Now, I would think most people can agree with that. Now, we start to get into a little bit of a gray area there in terms of when the definition of trust ends up being where they're saying, I will not purposefully do anything. So I'm not going to go on a dating site and try to meet somebody. I'm not going to invite a woman out to lunch when I know that you would not be comfortable with that. Now, generally speaking, in my own personal life, the way that I will approach things, if a situation presents itself that I don't really think that my girlfriend or wife would be okay with, I will be almost too honest. So an example might be I get an email, a direct message from somebody that I really know, probably not somebody that my girlfriend would be comfortable with me speaking with. What I would do in that instance, if it's that kind of a message, whatever, I will tell my girlfriend, I'll say, hey, look, so and so messaged me. You know who they are. Is this okay or is this not okay? And then I would abide by what their boundaries are. Now, what I have found is, as an example, if I'm honest about what I'm going to do. If I say, hey, so and so messaged me, is it okay if I message her back? Because I'm being honest about what I'm doing, she will then be okay with it. My girlfriend or wife would be okay with it. Now, if I hid it from her and don't tell her, then of course she's not going to be okay with it because she's already illustrated that that's her boundary. But I think in an instance like that, what she's trusting me to do is to inform her, right? She's trusting that I won't do something like that without at least running it by her first. So, this is where we can get into the weeds in terms of how people define trust. Now, had that situation been a little bit different, let's extrapolate that out a little bit more. Let's say I'm at an appointment somewhere or I'm doing something out away, away from the home, away from my girlfriend, away from my wife, whoever it is. And the same so and so, I happen to cross paths with her on the street, right? And we're talking, we're having good conversation. And she's like, hey, if you're not doing anything right now, let's get some lunch. Hmm. So now I'm faced with a dilemma. I cannot just pick up the phone and call my girlfriend and be like, can I have lunch? I can't do that, right? That's unreasonable to expect. So now I have two choices. I can go to lunch with that woman, or I can tell her, I'm sorry, I'm in a committed relationship, and I know that she wouldn't be comfortable with that. Those are my two options. Now, my girlfriend is at home and she's doing whatever she's doing, and she's comfortable because she trusts me to know that under that circumstance, I will say, I'm sorry, I'm in a committed relationship, and my girlfriend wouldn't be comfortable with that. Regardless of what I think about the boundary, regardless of if I feel, well, I really wouldn't be doing anything wrong, I'm not going to be having sex with her, there's really nothing wrong with what I'm doing. That's not what I agreed to. What I agreed to was, don't go to lunch with a woman without my girlfriend or wife being present. That's what I agreed to. So she's trusting that that's what I will do. Now, I have those two choices. I can take the lunch, or I can say, I really can't. Now, if I say I really can't, then I have proven myself to be trustworthy. But what if I feel embarrassed? What if I feel that by telling her that I can't go to lunch with her because I have a girlfriend, what if I feel that's going to reflect poorly on me and I make the choice to take the lunch and we go to lunch? Now, at this point, I would think that most of us would agree that at that point, I have broken the trust, right? I've done the thing that I said that I would not do, irregardless of how I feel about if I should be able to do that thing. I've now done it. And I know that I'm going to be faced with another choice later on. And those two choices are, now what do I do? Do I tell my girlfriend? Do I say, so I was out and I ran into so and so? She invited me to lunch and I didn't want to embarrass myself, embarrass her. So I went to lunch with her. Am I already showed in the initial reaction that I was not willing to make myself look a certain way to uphold my girlfriend's boundary that she had given to me. I've already proven that I was not willing to uphold that boundary because of how it would make me feel. But now I have the choice. Do I tell her? Am I at least man enough to say, I did this thing? Now, on one hand, while I broke the trust by going out to lunch with the woman, if I'm at least immediately honest and open about it, now there's something there that's salvageable. I can say, I can apologize. I can say all of the things, and she's going to be mad. She's going to be upset. But at the very least, I showed that I'm man enough to bring this to her attention and say, this is what I did. Now, the other option I obviously have is to just simply not tell her. And I know that some people have the attitude of what somebody doesn't know doesn't hurt them. To me, that's a very dangerous way to go through life because there's no rules then, right? There's no rules then. So I don't tell her. I don't say anything. So now I've broken the trust twice. Now I've broken it twice. Not only have I done the thing I promised that I would not do, but rather than explaining that, hey, this happened, rather than being willing to rock the boat and be honest and trustworthy and say, I made a mistake. This thing happened. Or even it just happened by accident. Even, I mean, a lunch doesn't really happen by accident, but you get what I'm saying. Instead of being willing to take the hit and rock the boat, I've decided I've already broken her trust once, but by breaking it a second time and not telling her, it's a good chance she's not going to find out. Everybody gets away happy, happy, right? I get to know that I broke her trust without any consequence. She doesn't know that I broke her trust, so there's no big argument. She doesn't get mad at me. I don't have to face the consequences. Besides, I didn't do anything wrong. I wasn't going to have sex with her. It was just a lunch. That boundary that she has is stupid. That's what I would tell myself. Now, we've talked about boundaries a lot on this channel. That's not how boundaries work. When you're in a relationship, you are agreeing to what the other person has set forth as their boundaries. If you disagree with those boundaries, you have two choices. You don't enter the relationship, or you abide by their boundaries like a good, trustworthy person does. You don't pick option number three, which some people do choose, which is I'm going to tell them that I agree to this boundary, but then if I whoopsies accidentally break it, I'll just keep my mouth shut because, well, what they don't know won't hurt them. That's not trust. So I've broken the trust twice. And now we get into the next level and the layers of things that this is the parts where relationships can really go bad. These are the things that I'm about to say. These are the things when people will start talking about the words narcissist or gaslighting or whatever you want to use. I don't like to diagnose people because there's three sides to every story. And like I've said before in the past, if you research narcissism enough, you will find that every human, every relationship that you've ever been in has multiple red flags that would indicate that they're a narcissist. So now I've taken the lunch. I've not told her about it. Now a couple weeks later, she comes to me and she says, "Babe, I gotta talk to you about something. I gotta talk to you about something." And she might say, I just had this really odd feeling since last Tuesday. It just You were out doing your thing, you were out at your appointment, and I don't know what happened. I just got a really, really bad feeling like something wasn't right. Did something happen on Tuesday? Did something happen that I would be upset about or that would cause me to pick up the vibe of something being wrong? Hmm. Well, I know on Tuesday I had lunch with so and so. So now I'm faced with yet another choice. And this is how the choices start to stack. Once you start picking the door of not being honest, you are stuck. You are stuck. So now I have another choice. I can be like, well, I didn't want to have to tell you this, but, but, and again, she's going to be mad. She's going to be pissed. There's going to be consequences. You could possibly lose the relationship over that. But at least at that point, you're choosing to, okay, before this gets out of hand, obviously she can sense that something's going on, right? We've all been in relationships. We all know when we get that little gut feeling, everybody's experienced that. She's got this gut feeling, and you know that what she's feeling is correct. So you either tell her or maybe you don't. Maybe you don't tell her. Maybe you tell her that no, nothing happened. There's nothing that I can recall happened. Maybe she'll press you a little bit more and say, are you sure? Because I really feel like something might have happened. If you just tell me now, I'm not going to be upset, but Did and maybe you just double down and say, no, nothing happened. And then maybe if you're really, really afraid, if you're the person at this point being dishonest and you're really afraid or concerned about how the reaction is going to be, you might tell them that nothing happened. You're making it up in your head. It's your imagination. You got cheated before in a relationship and now you don't trust me. You might use words like that to protect yourself from them finding out the truth. And now, when you unravel that entire situation, beauty is in the eye of the beholder in terms of who feels the trust was broken first. She set a boundary. I didn't like it. I agreed to abide by it, but when the rubber hit the road and I had an opportunity to choose to break the boundary or keep the boundary, I thought, the boundary's stupid anyway. I'm going to do it. That's one breaking of the trust. The second break of the trust was later when I came home and I decided, well, I can either admit that I screwed up or that something happened and see if I can manage this and not have the relationship deteriorate, or I can choose to hide it and figure, how's she going to know? How are they going to know that I went to lunch with so and so? Now the trust has been broken twice. Then if she comes to you and maybe she heard it from a friend, maybe she's got an intuition about something, whatever it is, somehow she's communicated to you that I kind of feel like something funny went on. Just tell me. And now you're faced with that choice again. Only the problem is now you're facing the first breakage of trust and the second breakage of trust. And so many people in that situation are going to continue to say, no, nothing happened. Nothing happened. So when you begin these relationships, it is important to go over things, situations that might come up, and make sure that everybody's definition of trust is the same. Because for some people, they feel that I've had somebody say to me, if my partner cheats on me and I don't find out, no harm, no foul. Now, if you're dealing with somebody like that, it is likely then that if something happens in your relationship with them, if they do something that they know is going to upset you, they're likely not going to tell you. And then they will say, well, I can't tell you these things because it would upset you. I can't tell you these things because you've got these boundaries that are so difficult for me to follow and you're going to be upset. And the interesting thing that will happen then is that they will explain to you that they are not lying to you while also explaining why they lied to you. But then that gets into what's the definition of a lie? Is omission of information a lie? Is it a lie if I went to lunch with the girl and I don't tell my wife, am I lying or I'm just omitting information? The same thing same thing applies to trust. Where is that line? Anybody can say, I'm not going to purposefully do anything. I'm not going to seek out. I'm not going to make plans to break your boundaries. That's the most basic thing of trust. But again, if you have entered into a relationship with someone, most likely the best thing to do if you do not agree with the boundaries that they are telling you that they are comfortable with, if you really don't agree with them, you probably shouldn't enter in that relationship because you might obey those boundaries. You might obey them for some time, but eventually you're going to break that trust. And then you're going to be faced with the decision that I just laid out for you, which is, do I tell them? If I do, how do I do it? When do I do it? And the last thing I'll say is that you will run into people who feel that omitting the information in the example that I gave you, if I went to lunch with the girl and didn't tell my wife, they will consider the fact that they did not tell you not breaking the trust. They will consider the fact that they did not tell you them still being honest. And they will justify that by saying, well, you would have been upset if I told you. And when else does trust matter? That is the entire point of trust in a relationship. Not just, I'm not going to do anything on purpose, but a big part of trust in a relationship is knowing that your other person, if something happens that they know crosses your boundaries, you can trust them to come to you and say, this happened. That to me is a far more important trust than the general, I'm not going to sleep with anybody else. I'm not going to go have sex. I'm not going to seek out anything. Anybody can say they're not going to seek anything out. It's how you react when real life hits. And we've all had it happen, right? We've all run into somebody when we've been out or had a message, email, whatever from somebody that we know, I really shouldn't be communicating with this person. Like I said, when that happens for me, at least the email and everything, I've gone through arguments before because I've been honest to the point to say, so and so emailed me. How do you want me to handle this? If you're not okay with me communicating with her, totally fine. That's what I'll do. But if you're okay with it, then I'll do it. And generally speaking, in fact, I can't think of a time where my girlfriend or wife did not say, okay, go ahead and talk with them, because they know that I'm trustworthy to the point that if something might happen that breaks their boundaries, that I'm at least going to alert them to the situation and say, hey, this is happening. I know you're not really okay with it. How would you like me to handle the situation? Now, of course, like I said, if you're meeting somebody accidentally in public, there's only so much that you can do there. But if that situation occurs, the onus is still on you to come home and say, this thing happened. There was nothing I could do about it. We're walking down the street. We saw each other. They come up. They said hi. We talked for a few minutes and they walked. Whatever it is, it's still up to you to tell the truth. That is what I would think most people would agree with that in terms of trust. And that's the last thing I'll say is that do not assume. Do not assume that when you meet somebody new and there's a lot of talk about somebody I can trust and I can trust you, and all of that talk, right? Especially these days, that is a hot topic in relationships. When you first meet somebody is, can I trust this person? Make sure that your definition of trust is the same as theirs. Make sure that if you're the type of person that will be open and honest about everything, you're going to expect that same honesty in return. Make sure that even though they use the word trust, that you are going to get that open and honest and truthful communication going both ways. Because once somebody gets it in their head that it's okay to not tell you something because it might upset you, well, where does that boundary end? Where does that boundary end if I, as the man, decide, well, I think that boundary is stupid. I shouldn't have to tell her that, so I just don't tell her. Well, now that could apply to something silly like just meeting somebody on the street and having lunch. But where's the line? If I'm willing to not tell her that I had lunch with somebody, am I then going to be willing to not tell her when that girl starts texting me? Am I willing to not tell her when we have another lunch and maybe it progresses? Where's that line? There isn't a line. If you're willing to be dishonest with your person about the small things because you're afraid of their reaction, you're going to be dishonest with your person about the big things. You're not going to suddenly wake up one day and be like, well, now I'm just going to be honest about everything because it's been too far. I mean, that might happen, but by then maybe you've been having an affair or whatever the case may be. So I know this video went a little bit long, but it's important to make sure that the examples are clearly illustrated. It is not an easy topic when you're first meeting somebody because everybody just kind of assumes that what trust means to me is what it means to you. And I am here to tell you that that is not the case. Make sure you're speaking the same language when you meet somebody and you're talking about trust back and forth. Not everybody views it the same way.